right now we're talking about somebody who's going in wide receiver 5-6 range. And come November, I'm going to be like, man, I should have seen that coming. So
wait, Matt, it's only late March, so don't kick yourself too hard about, not uncovering until now. We still have 5 months to draft.
Want to know which receiver we're talking about? Stick around to find out on the latest Draft Sharks podcast. Matt Schaff and Jared Smola here to reveal 5 early fantasy football sleepers. You can find our initial sleepers article on draftsharks.com right now. That's going to include some of the guys we're talking about in this show today. Certainly not all of them. There are a couple of guys that we'll hit on today's show that are not in that article right now. We've got representatives from all 4 offensive positions, and we're going to keep that article updated on the site throughout the summer. So, you might find new guys show up. You might find new information. Situations are going to change. Jared, let's start this particular show with a guy that the market, I think, has just not corrected on enough yet since he landed with a new team. That's Justin Fields, now the quarterback of the Jets, QB 17 in current underdog fantasy ADP, 21 fantasy points per game across 6 starts to open last season. That would have ranked 13th for the season, fine number. And that was with the Steelers handcuffing him as a passer. You can look at any passing chart from last year and see that. He ranked 13th among quarterbacks in fantasy points per game in 2023, 8th if you take out the one game that he left early in that season. And then the year before that, 2022, ranked 6th in fantasy points per game. What do you think about Justin Fields on the market right now?
I think this is an easy call. And maybe that's overstating it, right? Because there's no such thing as a sure thing in fantasy football. But to me, Fields is just an easy bet to make as long as he stays outside, I don't know, the top 15 or so quarterbacks in ADP. Because like you said, Matt, we've seen him do it. If you look at Fields, so he's played 42 career games with a snap rate north of 90%. So basically 42 full games in his career. He's finished as a top 12 quarterback scorer in 57% of those games. That trails the elite quarterbacks, your Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen types, but it's better than most of the middle to lower end quarterback ones. Last year, for example, Kyler Murray, 53% of his games, he was a top 12 fantasy quarterback, trailing that 57% from Fields. Jared Goff was at 47%. Patrick Mahomes at 31%. So I just think, you're getting a guy who I feel like is a safe bet to, give you low end quarterback 1 production at least for a, mid-range quarterback 2 price.
QB 17 in ADP right now. The only way that he doesn't hit that is if he gets hurt. And I mean, that's true with anybody. We've already seen him outperform that level plenty of times. I think, Jared, like I said, it's a matter of the market not reacting enough since he got a new team, signed with the Jets. I could understand him being down there before when we were uncertain if Justin Fields would start for anybody. But now I think it's an example of the anchoring effect where we've had the market set where Justin Fields is. So if you're drafting and looking at ADP from the drafting to this point, you're seeing where Justin Fields sits in that list, and that's affecting where you think he deserves to be drafted instead of saying, well, now he's a starter. He's been a top 8 quarterback fantasy-wise multiple times. I should be drafting him up here right now. So I'm going to go ahead and draft him at least up here, maybe not up here, but right here, right now. I took him as my first quarterback on my current FFPC best ball tournament slow draft team. I think he was QB 13 off the board to me. Obviously, I don't know how much longer he would have stayed on the board had I not taken him, but I'm more than happy to make him the guy there. That was what the draft war room told me to do. I was like, yep, sweet. That's what I wanted to do right here anyway.
Yep. Quarterback 11 in our rankings as of, late March here. So I think a value at quarterback 13. Listen, I think that the Jets, not the best landing spot he could have gotten, right? I mean, hopefully they add something behind Garrett Wilson at wide receiver. I expect them to. But I don't think Chicago and Pittsburgh were good spots for quarterback production either. Right? I mean, we're drafting Fields for the rushing production. He's going to do it. I trust that coaching staff. Tanner Eggstrom in there now as offensive coordinator coming from the Ben Johnson tree. I think he'll maximize Fields' rushing ability. And we know Fields is going to scramble anyway. So he's a safe bet for that rushing production. And that's why we're drafting him in fantasy.
Yeah, for a more typical quarterback, maybe it would be a negative landing spot. But for Justin Fields, it might be good to land in a spot that has one receiver and little else. Because if you can't find anybody, you're taking off. And there are a few guys in the league that take off as well from quarterback as Justin Fields does. Jared, who's your first running back among the sleepers here?
Yeah, Jordan Mason for me, who changed teams fairly recently, getting traded from San Francisco to Minnesota. And that's the first reason I like Jordan Mason is it seems like the Vikings are pretty high in this guy. They, made it a point to go out and trade for him. Not that they gave up a ton, but we don't see teams trade for running backs that often, right? That the league kind of devalues the position in general. So the Vikings made the move for Mason and then also signed him to a new 2-year $10.5 million deal. Most of that was guaranteed money. So a pretty nice contract for a guy who he's going to open the season as the number 2 running back, right? I mean, Aaron Jones also re-signed with Minnesota this offseason to a bigger deal. The veteran's going to come in there and be the lead back to open the season. But I think that the Vikings don't want Aaron Jones carrying as much as he did last season. 15.0 carries per game for Aaron Jones last year. That was a career high, actually. He was between like 11 and 13 carries per game the previous 3 seasons. I think they probably want him back in that territory. We saw them start to mix in Cam Akers down the stretch last year. I think that was a sign that they wanted to lighten the load on Aaron Jones. I think the Vikings obviously view Jordan Mason as an upgrade over Cam Akers. So I think there's potential for Mason to get enough work even behind Aaron Jones to be maybe an RB3 flex level play. But the real upside is, one, if Jones gets hurt, and he has had trouble staying healthy. Last year was, I think, his only second fully healthy season in the NFL. Or 2, the other upside path for Jordan Mason is if Aaron Jones just kind of hits a wall. He's 30 years old now. He had some of the worst efficiency metrics of his career last year in terms of, missed tackles forced, yards after contact per carry. Jordan Mason last year actually beat Aaron Jones in yards after contact per attempt, missed tackles forced per attempt, rush yards over expected per attempt. So again, I think Aaron Jones is going to, kind of get the veteran deference and open the season as the lead back. But it would not surprise me if, we get to October and the Vikings are just like, this Jordan Mason, he's better at this point of their careers than Aaron Jones. And maybe we start to see, the backfield flip towards Jordan Mason.
I said on the show where Shane and I were reacting to some of the top free agent moves and other moves in there, when the Vikings threw the money that they did at Aaron Jones in free agency, I was like, man, maybe they're overpaying him and want him to keep running too much like he did last year. But then they traded for Jordan Mason, didn't give up a lot in trade, but paid Jordan Mason after trading for him. And that to me says they want a better RB2. They want somebody to take some of that work from Aaron Jones. And then, like you said, the ultimate upside for an RB2 is that starter going down. We were talking last year about Ty Chandler having upside because of the chances that Aaron Jones had of getting injured. He stayed pretty healthy last year, but, it's always a matter of time until a running back misses sometime, no matter how well he does health-wise or what age he is. So it's a nice spot to be the RB2, and clearly Minnesota invested in Mason for that spot because they like him. You can find more on both Mason and Justin Fields in Jared's Full Sleepers article on draftsharks.com right now. Like I said, we're going to keep updating it throughout the spring and summer. Situations change, outlooks change, draft prices change, the market's going to change. So we're going to keep track of all those things and, alter our sleeper picks as is needed. Jared, I think one thing, like I just talked about with Ty Chandler and the backup Viking spot last year, one way to look for potential sleeper spots, even if it's not the specific player that you like, is thinking about something you liked last year that is not getting priced the same this year. And then thinking about what the reason for it is. Sometimes it's we misread that situation. It wasn't as good as we thought. We misread that player. He's not as good as we thought. Sometimes it's just it didn't happen to work out last year, so I'm not getting back in this year, and it might still have the same upside. For me, MarShawn Lloyd is a great example of that this year. Last August, he was RB 55 in best ball drafts. He is RB 67 in underdog drafts right now, going in a range that says he does not always get drafted in those 20-round drafts. Now, what's the reason for that drop? MarShawn Lloyd basically did nothing as a rookie. 6 carries, 1 catch. He saw action in 1 game. The problem, of course, was injuries. Hip and hamstring injuries cost him most of the summer. Then he had an ankle injury in week 2, his debut, landed him on IR, was about to return in mid-November, had an emergency appendectomy. So clearly the football gods were like, dude, you're just not playing football this year. We're going to do whatever it takes to keep you off the field. In his absence, we got Emmanuel Wilson, probably running better than any of us reasonably expected Emmanuel Wilson to do. Chris Brooks was fine at times. I don't think either of those guys matches MarShawn Lloyd in upside. And I mean, just a year ago, the Packers drafted Lloyd in round 3, right after they had signed Josh Jacobs to a multi-year deal. He was coming off 7.1 yards per carry in his lone USC season, 13.3 yards per catch across seasons with USC and South Carolina. So just playing for all the USCs. 93rd percentile speed score at the combine, 4.46 second 40 at 220 pounds. So this is a talented back who showed off that talent in college and is in a spot where he should at least be the RB2 for a coach that has supported multi-back systems throughout his coaching career. And then, of course, there's that handcuff upside, like we talked about with Jordan Mason.
It's like a true sleeper. I feel like I feel like drafters just have forgotten about this guy. I just took him this morning in the 20th round of a drafters draft. I think if I didn't, he would have gone undrafted. Kind of strange how people have just written him off. Like, he didn't have the injury prone tag coming into the league. I think a lot of the stuff last year was just bad luck, the appendectomy, obviously. So to me, he still was a super intriguing prospect, got the day 2 draft capital. I think the Chris Brooks, Emmanuel Wilson stuff last year is more a positive for MarShawn Lloyd, just how good and voluminous that Packers running game was last year. To me, that's just a positive. I think MarShawn Lloyd, clearly a more talented player than either Brooks or Wilson. And I think if he stays healthy, and if, I mean, we'll see. He needs to dodge another, day 1, day 2 running back pick from the Packers. But if he does, I think Lloyd is a pretty clear favorite to win that running back 2 job. And if that's the case, he should be going, 4 or 5 rounds earlier in fantasy drafts.
Like you said, this is a tremendous situation. 2023 is the only time among 6 seasons of Matt LaFleur being the Packers head coach that Packers running backs did not collectively rank 10th or higher in RB PPR points. That season, of course, was followed by them booting Aaron Jones, signing Josh Jacobs, drafting MarShawn Lloyd. Emmanuel Wilson had 2 top 15 PPR weeks last year as the RB2. That was with Josh Jacobs playing every game and hitting 301 carries. So the upside's there. The situation is good. And I'm with you on drafting Lloyd. He would probably be even earlier ADP wise, but at some point I was like, I got to stop drafting him because if he gets hurt in June, then my teams are going to be screwed. My 3rd most drafted player on drafters. He's on 33% of my rosters. My ADP for him is 201. That's more than 2 rounds ahead of where he is, where you just found him. Like, he'll regularly go undrafted in those drafts right now. I'm just going to collect more because why not? Because at that point, you're not losing anything if that guy does get hurt. I don't understand the not drafting him at this point. I think it's really, like you said, people saw him do absolutely nothing last year. They're like, well, that's somebody I don't ever have to think about again.
And I think the situation where people are going to catch up to it eventually. So load up on him now, Max. I think he will be around 15 pick by the time we get to May and June, assuming the Packers don't make a significant add to the backfield. So I think now's the time. Just get your MarShawn Lloyd now, then make other people, pay the higher price for him this summer.
One OTA's Buzz article and he's up 4 rounds easily. Yep. So right now you might be thinking, thanks for suckering me into this video that's all about handcuff running backs, guys. I'm pretty bored here. I think that's a little rude if that's your reaction, but you can still let us know if that's what you think in the YouTube comments on this video. We certainly take all that feedback to heart, even the mean stuff. And now we are going to move on to a couple of guys that are not handcuff running backs, but you can let me know if you think that this next guy I bring up is also boring. It's Jalen Coker, a wide receiver for the Panthers, and honestly, not somebody that I have thought about a whole lot during this early draft season, and now I'm thinking that I probably should have. So when he arrived at some point last season, I was like, who the heck is Jalen Coker? And of course, we've got Shane Hallam around, so he's like, oh, Jalen Coker, Holy Cross, big guy, good mover. I had a 5th-round grade on him. I liked him better than Jermaine Burton. I'm like, thanks, dude. You should have told me that a little bit earlier, but, we got him now. If anything, Jalen Coker was set up to do absolutely nothing last year. He was undrafted for starters. He hurt a hamstring at the combine, which probably had him run his 40 a little bit slower than he would have otherwise, 4.57. Then he made the hamstring worse, according to his account, hurt the other hamstring as well. He opened camp on the physically unable to perform list, opened the regular season on the practice squad, had limited time to show what he had at that point. Still, week 5 hit 50% playing time. And then from week 5 through week 10, he matched 1st-round teammate Xavier Legette in targets and catches, beat Legette in receiving yards, 263 to 141 over that span, averaged 20 more receiving yards per game over that span than Legette. Then Coker lost 3 games to a quad strain. As soon as he came back, he was starting, even though Legette was around, even though Adam Thielen was healthy at that point. From week 15 on, Coker beat Legette by 30 receiving yards per game, more catches and yards per game over that span on fewer targets. The whole span that they had together from week 5 on, again, that was when Jalen Coker started playing meaningful snaps. He edged Legette in route rate overall, trailed Legette in ADOT and air yards share, but destroyed him in catch rate, in team share of receiving yards, 25.5% to 14.3%, nearly doubled Legette in yards per target, averaged 5.5 more yards per catch. So he already went from undrafted free agent to outperforming his 1st-round teammate in their first seasons with the team. Now, that, of course, is a limited sample, but it also follows a strong college production profile for Jalen Coker. Went to Holy Cross, so, lower level of competition, but that's why we look at stuff like market shares. And his final 3 seasons, Coker was over 24% team share of receptions, over 26% team share of receiving yards. And those numbers jumped over his final 2 seasons, 2022, 2023. He was over 30% in receptions, yards, touchdowns, both years. In his final season at Holy Cross, 38% reception share, 47% yardage share, 60% of the team's touchdown catches. So what you want to see from a guy at a lower level is dominating. And that was what he did before he had the impressive rookie season.
Yeah, I remember some sleeper buzz on Coker even in the pre-draft process last year. And he definitely had an impressive rookie season, better than Xavier Legette, basically any way you want to slice it. And even among the entire rookie crop. So 16 rookie wide receivers last year with 30 plus targets. Coker was top 6 among those 16 in yards per route run, PFF receiving grade, and ESPN open score. Again, he pretty easily beat Xavier Legette in all 3 of those. So encouraging rookie season. We'll see what else Carolina does in the wide receiver core. But if you believe in second half of the season, Bryce Young, and think, that's the guy we're going to get in 2025, this Panthers offense in general could be a spot to find some sleeper value, because I think the passing game right now, it's cheap all around, right? And no one's going early in drafts. Bryce Young is not. None of these wide receivers are. Jalen Coker, wide receiver 66 and underdog ADP. I definitely think he's a good gamble to take at that price tag.
And that's what got me thinking about it. I'm working on our breakouts article, which is coming out later this week, and I'm looking around for guys that might do it. And what you need is somebody who has, more opportunity available to them, plus the talent to capitalize on the opportunity. So I do think that we're going to get more from Bryce Young going forward. I think he was encouraging over the second half of last season. I don't think that he's going to bust overall. We'll see just how good he is, but it looks like he's going to at least be much better than he was his rookie year and at the beginning of last year when he got benched for Andy Dalton. So if we believe that Bryce Young is going to at least be serviceable going forward, then the question becomes who's going to get those targets in Carolina. It's open. Adam Thielen was still productive last year, but he's old. He's even older now. Xavier Legette is there, was a first-round pick last year, but was a bad college prospect in terms of the metrics profile. Did not produce until the very end of a 6-year college run. So we were already wondering about him, and then he's outperformed by Coker right away. So then when you throw in that everybody's cheap, that you're not really investing much to take a shot on somebody, I just didn't take the time previously to figure out who I should take a shot on. I was like, man, just a group of guys down there. None of them's really going to be that good. And they look like a strong candidate to draft somebody. Maybe that's the case. Maybe they take Tet McMillan in the first round of this draft, or, Emeka Ibuka or whoever. Maybe they have somebody who is their immediate Lad McConkey, and this is all rendered moot. But right now, we're talking about somebody who's going in wide receiver 5-6 range. And if come November, Jalen Coker is the lead receiver, I'm going to be like, man, I should have seen that coming. So now I'm going to try to.
Wait, Matt, it's only late March, so don't kick yourself too hard about, not uncovering Coker until now. We still have, 5 months to draft.
Oh, yeah. That's why I'm mentioning him now instead of being like, oh, I messed up. So I'm going to be looking for some Jalen Coker going forward. And I'm going to hope that not too many people listen to this and follow so I can keep taking him in that range where he is. All right, Jared, close us out here with a tight end.
Cole Kmet, one of my favorite targets in drafts right now, coming off a bad, at least fantasy-wise, 2024 season. He finished tight end 22 in PPR points per game. So it was pretty useless from a fantasy perspective. I'm just giving Kmet and really the entire Bears offense a mulligan for last year. They had bad coaching, a bad offensive line, a rookie quarterback that struggled. We've already seen him address those first 2 problems this offseason. They hire Ben Johnson to come in as their new head coach. They're going to have at least 3 new offensive line starters. We'll see if they add any more in the draft. And then I think, Caleb Williams, obviously a good chance for a year 2 leap from a quarterback that obviously has all the physical tools you could ask for. So I think you add it all up and it makes Kmet a good bounce back bet. We've already seen him. Just go back to 2023. He was tight end 8 in PPR points per game. He was also 8th among 33 qualifying tight ends in yards per route last year. This was a guy who was ascending prior to last year. And even last year, he remained efficient. He had an 85.5% catch rate. Kmet led the Bears with a 119 passer rating when targeted. So when the ball came his way, he was efficient. He just didn't get the ball enough. He had just 3.2 targets per game on a 9.7% target share. That came after topping a 17% target share in each of the previous 3 seasons. So now you get Keenan Allen gone. He leaves behind 121 targets in just 15 games, so a little over 8 targets per game. And Ben Johnson, who I think runs a pretty tight end friendly offense. The Bears GM, Ryan Poles, alluded to that shortly after Ben Johnson was hired. And you just look at Ben Johnson's last 3 years in Detroit. Sam Laporta, obviously, the 2 big seasons, big rookie season. Even last year was a good season, even if it was disappointing from where we were drafting him in fantasy. And then Ben Johnson's first year, 2022, TJ Hockenson was tight end 4 in PPR points per game that year before getting traded to Minnesota halfway through the year. So just I look at the current state of this offense. You still have DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, obviously, but unless they make a significant addition at wide receiver in the draft, I think Cole Kmet's going to be the number 3 option in this passing game, which, Ben Johnson has made the tight end a big part of his passing game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the general issues for the Bears offense last year. You mentioned Keenan Allen being there and no longer there as of right now. There was also Shane Waldron bringing his pet Gerald Everett to town and cutting into Cole Kmet's playing time. So there were all these factors working specifically against Cole Kmet, which, you look at a guy and you see the drop off in production at that point in his career and you're like, maybe I should worry about this, because if he was that good, then that doesn't happen. In this specific situation, there are reasons that can't explain it away. And then his playing time did pick back up later in the season. So I don't think Cole Kmet is a stud of a player, but he's certainly good enough. He's produced before. And I agree that this offense should get better than it was last year. Cole Kmet is one of the most mispriced tight ends by our ADP market index. There are only 3 guys ahead of him in total difference between our ratings and the market. And they are Taysom Hill, who's coming off an ACL tear. So I don't know what to do with him right now. I'm sure that nobody else really does. Noah Fant, who's a late tight end 3, doesn't really matter. Chigakonkwo, almost as late a tight end 3. So we're talking about 3 guys that really don't matter for fantasy probably this season, and Cole Kmet in that territory. And I think that shows how we rate him versus how the market rates him. I think the market is not really looking at the factors from last season and the upside that is there with Cole Kmet this year.
I think Kmet is someone who's going deep in tight end 2 territory. I think he has a good chance to be a top 12 fantasy tight end this year. Basically, every other piece of this Bears passing game has been jacked up in price, but people have just sort of forgotten about Cole Kmet for whatever reason.
He's also the kind of player that can help your tight end strategy. If you don't want to draft an elite guy, a lot of times if you're passing on the elite guys, then you kind of get stuck taking somebody in that tight end 10 to 12 range of ADP. I think that by the time you get past the top 5, 6 in general, like David Njoku's maybe, I don't want to say he's the last guy, but he's kind of a line of demarcation where I'll target him. And if he's gone, I don't want to feel like I need to reach for the next guy. So you can wait and take 2 guys outside of the top 12, make Cole Kmet one of those guys, like Cole Kmet and Pat Freiermuth or something along those lines. You can check the rankings for your own favorite candidates, but take 2 of those guys, see if one works, see if one settles in as your weekly starter, looking beyond best ball. And then that guy can just be your tight end, whether he's the lead or whether he's your every week dude.
Historically, and I think this year as well, tight end 10 through 24 tends to be pretty flat, right? So I know it can be scary sometimes you're drafting, you don't have a tight end yet, 13 are off the board, you think you got to get yours now. But I think generally if you wait, the guys you're going to be getting 2 rounds later are very similar to the guys that are best available right now.
Yeah, so check that best ball ADP market index, find some more value plays at tight end or across positions, as well as some players you might want to fade. Look for the red negative number to show you who we're much lower on than the market is. You're also going to want to read through all of Jared's sleepers on draftsharks.com before your next draft. And like I said, we're going to keep updating that throughout draft season, because whether you're drafting best ball teams right now, whether you're just drafting redraft teams later, whether you're doing dynasty, any other format, you can trust Draft Sharks to be your unfair advantage.